Hello, everyone. This is Thomas Pepin, NHL Talk. I'm Thomas Pepin, and let's talk about the NHL. In today's stream, we're going to do a recap of the second week of the NHL season. Topics include, I should say, so it's the major events of the week, as well as a number of other subjects. So the major topics, which to be honest, there weren't many major or things that I would consider major events. And like I don't talk about the political stuff. So for example, there's things related to what is the wording they use, I think, was social awareness. Social awareness, I don't know, stuff, but it was like the pride stick tape, and anyways, stuff like that. It's not stuff that I'm talking about. I just talk about hockey. I'm not talking about all that stuff. so um, so it's all going to be just news that's relevant to either management, like if you were into sports betting, if you're a fan of a team, things like that. So there's only really four major topics that I'm going to be covering, or four topics that I thought were worth covering. So the Bruins scratched DeBrusk for being late to a team meeting. So Andersson from the Flames got suspended 4 games. Pinto from the Senators was suspended for 41 games, and Zack Kassian retired from the NHL. And then otherwise, I'll go over suspensions if they're not already covered. Injuries, waiver claim signings, trades, scores, standings, and stat leaders. So those are the topics. So let's get to it. And as always, I should say, everything's done on the spot, no prep work except for the subjects. So we'll discover things as we go, and I'll have my thoughts as we go. So I don't really have any notes or anything. So first subject, if I share screen here, is DeBrusk was scratched for being late to a team meeting. It doesn't give us any extra information. So that was, it says 6 days ago, so for the game against the Kings. Now, my guess is that he's played since, and we'll just go and check to confirm. I think it's probably easiest to look this way. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, so he's played since the team imposed, what's it called? Well, scratch, so not a suspension, but team imposed punishment. So not much more to say than that. He came back in afterwards, so that was his punishment, I guess. Next up, Andersson from the Flames was suspended 4 games for a hit on Laine, I believe. Wasn't it a high hit? NHL said the force of the hit maybe from here. So it says that it was upheld, so I guess he challenged it, and it was upheld. Clifton's going to have a hearing. But I was supposed to get to that later, so I'll leave that. Let's put that there. Elbow and charging. So I didn't actually see the hit, but yeah, it doesn't. I mean, because I think the freeze frame is when the hit actually took place. So it's not late because it looks like he had the puck right there. So basically just charging or yeah. Not really much more to say than that. So this one is an interesting one. So I have a feeling that this is the reason, or part of the reason, why Pinto was never given a contract. So this is the article we had previously that I had pulled up. I believe it was in the preseason recap. And so he was left unsigned. And so I think they didn't have the it's either that they didn't have the cap space, didn't negotiate an acceptable agreement, or both. But given that, so this says that he was investigated. So if he was investigated, it probably wasn't done in a day. It was about a month ago that article was talking about him not being signed. So if I had to take a guess, this probably played a factor in him not getting signed and still not being signed. There's probably something going on behind the scenes preventing him from getting signed. So it could be all the things I just mentioned. So like negotiations, cap space, all that, and this. And I wouldn't be surprised if this was partially involved. So, yeah. So anyways, so basically he was suspended for sports wagering. Now it says here the league's investigation found no evidence that Pinto made any wagers on NHL games. Well, then why was he suspended 41 games? It says activities relating to sports wagering. The matter's closed and no further comment. It says nothing. There's absolutely nothing. You can go and look at the article yourself. I just kind of skimmed through it. So it says nothing, but clearly something happened if he's going to be suspended 41 games. So what that is, who knows? And it doesn't appear as though we will know unless something leaks. So again, not really anything that can be said about that, in particular because we have no information. So that's that. And then already we're at the fourth and final topic, which is Zack Kassian retired after 12 seasons in the NHL. Really, I mean, he was impactful at moments, but not like not somebody that's going to be in the Hall of Fame. So just if you were ever a fan of the Oilers, or did he play with? Yeah, he played with a number of other teams, or any of the other teams that he played with, then maybe it's relevant. But just going to give that information. Now, another thing. So I spoke about how I'm not going to talk about the sensationalist kind of topics that come up. And what I wanted to do is to demonstrate why. So One of the topics that came up is everybody was talking about, oh, Ovechkin didn't have a shot in 2 games and no goals in whatever number of games, and uh, maybe he can't, uh, he won't be able to compete for, um, like, to try to break Gretzky's records and stuff, and maybe he just doesn't have it anymore. And I was saying after that, and kind of explaining why I don't talk about these kinds of topics, is I was like, he's clearly going to come out of his bad stretch. Of course, I would have no idea if it would be 2 games from then or even 10 games from then. Maybe it might take 10 games till he gets back into form or starts to produce, because sometimes it has nothing to do with form, it just has to do with things going your way. And so, yeah, it's just like I had faith in things. So the term is regressing to the mean, where it can go both ways. So, well, in this, regressing to the mean would typically mean things are higher and going back. But in any case, I guess what the opposite would be, progressing to the mean? I don't know. Anyways. So if things are below historical averages, it's probably going to increase. If it's above historical averages, it's probably going to decrease. Everything tends to go back to the norm or the average. And so in his case, because he was performing below the norm, in all likelihood, things were going to eventually increase and it would go back to the norm. And as expected on my side, so he goes from, let's go through game logs. So he had no points. It says 4 shots. I thought he had no shots. So I think it was just back-to-back games with no shots after that. So basically he had 1 assist in 3 games to start the season, 4 shots. Which, okay, fine. Not good. But whatever. I was like, okay, well, give him a few more games and things are going to come back to normal. And immediately after that, so the article I think was written after the 18th or on the 18th, and then surely enough, 21st 5 shots, 14 shots on the 24th, and a goal and an assist on the 25th, 4 shots, an assist on the 27th, so that was today, 3 shots. So, I mean, yeah, maybe he's a bit below the norm for goals, but barely. So he gets, what, 40 goals a season, on the low end 30 something, on the high end like 50 something. So he's well within the norm range of what he would produce. 2 goals. If he had 1 more goal, it's basically on pace for his standard number of goals. Give it 3 more games, he scores 3 goals in those games and he's right back on pace. So it's like, so it just demonstrates what I've said. And it's like, so another example, the Oilers are not doing well, and it's something I'll touch on later, but like, it's less than 10 games and you're like, oh, the world's gonna end. It's like, give it a break. So obviously, to start with no goals in his first 4 games, it's not good, but he had 2, then 1 each in the next 2 games, so it's like, give it a break. So anyways, just wanted to demonstrate that. So regarding suspensions, we already mentioned about Andersson and then that being upheld afterwards. Clifton is going to have a hearing. So in theory, I guess he could be suspended or a fine. So we'll probably know, when was this? So this must have been today, which is why I wouldn't have known about it. So yeah, so we'll know the results. I believe it's the next day, or it's before the next game, something like that. So anyways, we'll see what happens there. So it was a check to the head of Heischer. Give me 1 sec. I just want to double check my notes here on topics. So we did suspensions. Now it is injuries. I just have to pull up other links here, so bear with me. Suspensions, injuries. Waiver claims, signings, trades, scores, where is that? Standings and stats. Okay, so I should have everything pulled up now. Just give me 1 sec to share screen again. All right, so injuries. So we'll go back to a week ago, which would have been, I think, the 20th. And so, again, I only really draw attention to injuries that are like a month or more, because a couple weeks is kind of pretty normal, and less than that, obviously, as well. So what it would be, excuse me, late November and afterwards that we'd look at. So Burakovsky won't be back until December 2nd, so that's a pretty long-term injury. It's his upper body. I don't know offhand what that injury is, if it's going to tell us. After, what does this say? After a hit. Oh, boarding. See, like, this is something I really dislike. So, as far as I'm concerned, if somebody gets injured, like, if he's out 6 to 8 weeks, Trouba only gets a minor penalty for boarding and no extra discipline. Like, that's so uneven. And so my stream earlier today was about fighting and leaving it in the league. This is part of the reason why. Like, if you don't have the league properly protecting players, like, you don't know that he's going to be out that long. And I didn't see the hit, so I don't know exactly how bad it looked. But it just seems so lopsided that Burakovsky's going to miss that length of time and Trouba missed 2 minutes of the game. It's brutal. So anyways, I dislike that. Anyways, any other... Savard's going to be out until December 7th at least. I believe that was on a blocked shot. Fractured left hand. I think it was a block shot, but I don't know for sure. Because I didn't actually see it. All right, next there is Lundstrom with an Achilles injury out till February 9. That's a long time. Nedeljkovic, lower body injury out until November 19. That's about a month. Anything else? Shabbat, that's a big injury, out until November 24th, so that's about a month too. Hand injury. I don't know how that happened as well, so let's have a look. Blocking a shot. Lucic until November 18, ankle injury. So those are the major injuries. Of course, if you're interested in shorter term injuries, you would have seen them as I scrolled through, or you can have a look at that link yourself. Next up, wait, this is the wrong... Oh wait, give me 1 second here. There we go, that's the right spot. So Foodie was claimed by Nashville from, what team was it? Blue Jackets. Oh, and wasn't he a first round pick or something like that? Yeah, first round pick in 2018. So could turn out good for Nashville. I guess good for them. And that's it for waiver claims. Any contracts signed? I didn't think anything of significance. Yeah, so an entry-level contract for a guy in Boston. Edward. That's it. Trades, nothing new. Scores, we go back to 20th. Any big scores to make note of? Seven 4 Avalanche over Islanders. 7-4 Wild over Oilers. That's about it. We got a couple. I was going to say a couple games left to finish today, but only one still in progress. So no major lopsided big scoring games. And then taking a look at the standings, I prefer the wild card view. So the Bruins doing well, kind of taking off where they were last season, which... Oh, and this is something I was going to do. Give me 1 sec. for every recap is compared to my predictions. Just for fun, kind of to see how my predictions are going in general. So, starting with the Atlantic. So Leafs are in third in the Atlantic. I had them to finish first. Bruins I had second. They're in first. We'll take a look at the other teams that I have in that are currently out. But there's the Red Wings. So I was saying how basic. So in my predictions, the stream that I did for that, I said that basically the Sabres and basically the Sabres up to the Panthers, almost all those teams are interchangeable. Any one of those could take a spot. I feel like the Panthers are probably going to make the playoffs, but beyond that, pretty much anybody could be in that last spot. So for the Red Wings to be doing as well as they're doing, I'm not surprised at all. And then we'll look at the rest in a sec. We'll just go through the Metropolitan next. So I had Hurricanes in first. They're tied for first, but they played more games, so that's why they're behind. Rangers I had third. They're in first. Flyers have been surprising. They're currently in third in the division. I had them to finish last. We haven't even gotten to 10 games, so we can't even really talk about streaks at the moment. But that's where we sit for those two divisions in the East. Behind them, there's the Lightning, who I had finishing 8th in the conference, which, so they're basically at the same spot that I was expecting. Then Devils, I thought they would be lower, so they're doing a bit better than I was expecting. Same can be said about Canadians. Blue Jackets are basically where I was expecting. Islanders, lower than expected. Capitals, probably about where I was expecting. Panthers, below where I was expecting. Senators, probably slightly below what I was expecting. And then Penguins, below what I was expecting. I guess actually you could say the same about the Sabres. So anyways, still very early in the season, but I mean, it's really close. So one game can change things dramatically. So Sabres win one game, they're up to fourth. Or, well, in this case, they'd be behind the Blue Jackets, so they'd be fifth in the wild card race. Penguins win one, and they're in the exact same spot. So, I mean, at this point, it's so early that streaks can, like a streak of 3 games can really change your position. So, so similar to what I predicted, not crazy far outside of it, and not exactly the same either. Then we have, I don't know if you could have seen all the stuff that you would have as I kind of scrolled through. But anyways, in the West, we've got, so we'll go with Central Division. Stars I had first, they're in second, and even with a win, they'd be behind the Avalanche. Avalanche are first. I was expecting them to kind of slip a little bit, but they haven't. They've done well. So they're in, first, and I had them to be third. Jets I had 7th. They're in third. In the division, Then going over to Metropolitan, or not Metropolitan, sorry, Pacific. Knights are where I predicted. Canucks are doing very well. Well, I say very well, but 4-2 is not that crazy good, so it doesn't mean anything because it's so early. It's 6 games in, so way better than I was expecting nonetheless. Kings are basically exactly where I expected. And then taking a look at the wild card spots. So Kraken, or well, actually we'll do it in this way. Wild are basically ballpark what I was predicting. Blues a bit below expectations. Coyotes better. Predators about where I was expecting. Ducks higher. Blackhawks higher. Kraken lower. Flames lower. Because I had Flames to be, a bit higher, but not anything too crazy. Oilers have been really below expectations for me and probably everybody. And then Sharks are basically right where you were expecting. So that's where everything's sitting. Of course, we're at most, more or less, a tenth of the season. So it's like, what do you really know from that? Nothing. And it's like I mentioned last stream. Oh, and actually, this would be a good subject maybe for next week. But where teams sit in the standings and then their likelihood of making the playoffs based on that. You don't really have a good idea if a team's going to make the playoffs or not until something like 65 games through the season. So things can change dramatically from this point to that point, obviously, because that's another almost 60 games. So don't... if your team's doing worse than you were expecting, don't lose hope. And if they're doing better than expected, don't get ahead of yourself. So that's that. Then we'll take a look at some stats. So points leaders, we've got Hughes doing pretty crazy numbers. That's in how many games? 7 games, 18 points. It's over 2 points per game. That's kind of crazy. Excuse me. Larkin, 15 points in how many games? 8. Actually, this is probably better to view in this format. We'll do this as well. This and this. Okay, so DeBrincat, 13 points in 8 games. Rantanen, 12 and 7. Bratt, 11 and 7. Nylander, 11 and 7. Actually, talking about Nylander, I should comment. So I predicted that he would get traded. And actually, something I thought about since that prediction is I would argue something different could theoretically happen, which could be something like trading Marner or Tavares. They're not going to trade Matthews, and especially because they just signed him. But theoretically, one of those two other guys could get traded. Which and if that would happen, I have no idea. But just a comment that you could very well see that happening. Another thing, actually, since we just got to his name, Draisaitl, if you take a look at that, 11 points in 7 games, and is it gonna... Where's McDavid? 8 points in 5 games. So keep in mind, he played 2 more games, and he's still, producing at a good rate. So it's not just because of McDavid that he gets those numbers. He is genuinely a good player, and I think that's something That's important to remember. Tavares 11-7, Kucherov 11-8, and Pettersson 10-6 are the top 10 point leaders. For goalies, I don't like goals against average, so we'll take a look at save percentage. Quick in first. I won't even say the percentage because some of these numbers are stupid because it's only 3 games. So Quick, Wall, Swayman, Ottinger, Bennington, Vejmelka, Reimer, DeSmith, which has been, I wouldn't say a surprise, but what's the term? Pleasant surprise? No. It's not really what I mean. Anyways, just he's doing better than maybe expected, so that's good for Vancouver. And then Allmark and Thompson. Then for defensemen, Makar, Theodore, Gostisbehere, Hedman, Bouchard, Fox, Sandheim, Seider, Dahlin, and Dobson are the top 10 for defensemen. All of them over a point per, or at or over a point per game. So pretty high production for defensemen, that's for sure. And then last, rookies. Cooley has 5 points in 6 games. Poitras 5-7. Grieg, I think is how it's pronounced. 5-7. Bedard 5-8. So that's our Bedard watch that we'll be doing. Just monitoring how he does. 3 of those are goals. And then is it Korshak? I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. 4-5. Brink 4-6. Fantilli 4-7. Minchukov, I don't know if that's how you say it. 4-7. Knees 4-7, and then Luke Hughes 4-7. So those are all the points leaders. I think I've covered all the topics I was planning on covering. Yeah, looks like it. So, on that note, I guess we'll leave it there. So, all things considered, kind of a quiet week. Nothing of great significance happened. The Pinto stories maybe probably the biggest news event, but not really anything too crazy outside of that. So some weeks are going to be like this where there's not too much to talk about, but basically you just get sort of a scan of everything that's happened. This might help for people who either don't look super closely or like just don't have, to be honest, I don't even really have the time to watch how things go every day. I do still, so I stopped doing my sports betting that I was doing as an income source because it turned to being unreliable, or I was concerned that it would become unreliable, so I stopped. But I do still sports bet just for fun because I'm just, it's interesting. So I'll bet on games daily for peanuts, no significant money, and I'll do like what's it called? Parlays. So I'll do like 10 different bet parlays, and of course, odds are I'm never going to get one right during the whole season, but yeah, it's still fun nonetheless. And actually, there's a parlay I did, and believe it or not, so it was, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure this is correct. somewhere between 8 and 10 game parlay for women's college basketball. So this was for March Madness. Yeah, it was March Madness, I'm pretty sure. And uh, yeah, I won the parlay, and then that paid for the PlayStation that I bought to be able to do uh, the streaming that I do for NHL 23. Uh, so it's just for fun. Doesn't cost much, and if I hit something, that's great. If not, it's just entertaining to something to look forward to every day. So I do it on hockey. I do it on football, both NFL and NCAA. So yeah. But what was I getting at? So yeah, as much as that's what I was getting at. So as much as I still will bet on a daily basis, I don't really take a look at news stories, so I don't follow all those things. So I'm still a huge fan of hockey. Obviously, I'm the one doing YouTube videos on it. Maybe I would follow it more closely if this became like something sort of larger. But yeah, if you're a fan like me, just not a like needing to see things immediately as they happen, then this could be a good kind of recap stream. Takes ballpark an hour a week, well, for me to do, so I see the things over that span, and then, well, actually, I gather them throughout the week, so it takes a bit longer for me. But for you, it would take less time. You only need to spend an hour a week, or less than that if it's a short week or uneventful week, and then this way you get kind of up to speed on all the major news stories. So that's about it. We will leave it there. And if you like the stream, hit the like button, share with your friends, subscribe, turn on notifications. The channel homepage has upcoming streams on regular NHL content. As always, those run on Fridays, such as today. So that would be one at, I think it's 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Give me a sec to go check. Yeah, so every week it should be, at the moment, my schedule permits me to do 2:30 p.m. Eastern on Fridays. And then this recap for the week will again take place on Fridays at midnight Eastern. And then the time actually will change once the time changes for, what is it? Is it called daylight savings? I don't know which thing it's called, but anyways, once the time change happens, it'll all get pushed an hour earlier, I think. So it would be daylight savings time, I guess. I think. I don't know. Anyways, it's not important. But so that's coming up next week. Maybe the topic I will do, that thing that I mentioned, I think it was the stream prior to this one. The weekly recap, I think that stream. But anyways, so where I talked about likelihood of teams making the playoffs based on different points in the season, maybe I can just pull up because I did all that research from my sports betting that I stopped doing, so I might as well get an extra benefit of sharing that information with you guys. So maybe that's what we'll cover next Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. So it will be short because I won't have to gather the data. So usually what I would do is, if I'm going to be doing a study, I would gather the data during the stream, and you watch me gather and put together and speak about the results. And in this case, you'll just get to see all the results and my discussion about it. So So I think that's what we'll do. But anyways, for things I can't schedule ahead of time, like franchise mode for NHL 23, that schedule's in the About section of the channel. It runs Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Be a pros whenever I have time or feel like it. I'm hoping in the next few days, maybe I'll get a few streams in for that. I don't know for sure about my schedule, if I'll be able to, but I'll try my best. Any comments, leave them in the comments. Suggestions likewise. And we will see you guys for the next stream. So the next scheduled stream would be Sunday, 10:30 p.m. Eastern for franchise mode. And then hopefully one or more Be a Pro streams for NHL 23 before that. So if you tuned in, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time. Okay, bye.